Hello guys, my name is Everything About Comics and today we have everything about DC's Swamp Thing. The Swamp Thing, Dr. Alec Holland, is a fictional character and antihero in comic books published by DC Comics. He is a humanoid, plant elemental creature, created by writer Len Wein and artist Bernie Wrightson. Swamp Thing has had several humanoid or monster incarnations in various different storylines. He first appeared in House of Secrets number 92, July 1971, in a standalone horror story set in the early 20th century. The character then returned in a solo series, set in the contemporary world and in the general DC continuity. The character is a swamp monster that resembles an anthropomorphic mound of vegetable matter. He fights to protect his swamp home, the environment in general, and humanity from various supernatural or terrorist threats. The character found perhaps his greatest popularity during the 1970s and early 1990s. Outside of an extensive comic book history, Swamp Thing has inspired 2 theatrical films, a live-action television series, and a 5-part animated series, among other media. IGN ranked him 28th in the top 100 comic book heroes. Len Wein came up with the idea for the character while riding a subway in Queens. He later recalled, "I didn't have a title for it, so I kept referring to it as that Swamp Thing I'm working on. And that's how it got its name." Bernie Wrightson designed the character's visual image, using a rough sketch by Wein as a guideline. The Swamp Thing character first appeared in House of Secrets number 92, June-July 1971, under the name Alex Olson. The comic is set in the early 20th century, when Olson, a scientist, is caught in a lab explosion caused by his coworker, Damian Ridge, who intended to kill him to gain the hand of Olson's wife Linda. Olson is physically altered by chemicals and the forces within the swamp. He is transformed into a monstrous creature who kills Ridge before the latter can murder Linda, who has started to suspect Ridge of murdering Alex. Unable to speak and with his monstrous appearance, he is unable to make Linda realize his true identity, and he returns to the swamp. After the success of the short story in the House of Secrets comic, the original creators were asked to write an ongoing series depicting a more heroic, more contemporary creature. In Swamp Thing number 1, October-November 1972, Wein and Wrightson updated the time frame to the 1970s and featured a new version character, Alec Holland, a scientist working in the Louisiana swamps on a secret bio-restorative formula that can make forests out of deserts. Holland is killed by a bomb planted by agents of the mysterious Mr. E. Nathan Ellery, who wants the formula. Splashed with burning chemicals in the massive fire, Holland runs from the lab and falls into the muck-filled swamp, after which a creature resembling a humanoid plant appears. Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway, who co-created Man-Thing for Marvel Comics a year and a half earlier, thought that this origin was too similar to that of their character, and Wein himself had written a Man-Thing story that was published with a June 1972 cover date, but he refused to change the origin in spite of some cajoling by Conway, who was his roommate at the time. Marvel, however, never took the issue to court, realizing the similarity of both characters to the heap. The creature, called Swamp Thing, was originally conceived as Alec Holland mutating into a vegetable-like creature, a muck-encrusted mockery of a man. However, under writer Alan Moore, Swamp Thing was reinvented as an elemental entity created upon the death of Alec Holland, having somehow absorbed Holland's memories and personality into itself. He is described as a plant that thought it was Alec Holland, a plant that was trying its level best to be Alec Holland, with the result that he suffered a temporary identity crisis as he tried to surrender to his plant side after the discovery that he could never be human, again, but he eventually adjusted to his role after a fight with the Floronic Man. This new twist on his identity diverged the character from Marvel's character. This was Alan Moore's second reinvention of a comic book character, the first being Miracleman. The major difference between the first and second Swamp Thing is that the latter appears more muscular than shambling, and possesses the power of speech. Being able to speak only with great difficulty, Alex Olson's speech impediment is a major reason why his wife could not recognize him. In Swamp Thing number 33, Alan Moore attempted to reconcile the 2 versions of Swamp Thing with the revelation that there have been many previous incarnations of Swamp Thing prior to the death and rebirth of the Alec Holland incarnation. 3 others are notable: Albert Hollerer, a World War II pilot, who appeared briefly and had his story summarized in Swamp Thing number 47, May 1986. Aaron Haley, who appeared in the 1998 Swamp Thing, Roots graphic novel set in the 1940s. and Alan Hallman, the Swamp Thing of the 1950s and 1960s, who was introduced in Swamp Thing Vol. 2 number 102, December 1990, and eventually, after being corrupted by the Grey, was killed by Holland. As a result, Holland is known as Swamp Thing IV by the editors of the DCU Guide. The two different comic book incarnations of Swamp Thing are also connected in that Holland's first wife is Linda Ridge, a descendant of Damian Ridge, the man who tried to kill Alex Olsen, causing him to become the original Swamp Thing from House of Secrets. Swamp Thing can inhabit and animate vegetable matter anywhere, including alien plants, even sentient ones, and construct it into a body for himself. As a result, bodily attacks mean little to him. He can easily regrow damaged or severed body parts, and can even transport himself across the globe by leaving his current form, transferring his consciousness to a new form grown from whatever vegetable matter is present in the location he wishes to reach. He even grew himself a form out of John Constantine's meager tobacco supply on one occasion. Swamp Thing is normally human-sized or slightly larger than average, but he can grow bodies much larger. He once used Sequoioideae to grow a body the size of an office block. Swamp Thing possesses superhuman strength. While Swamp Thing's strength has never been portrayed as prominently as many of his other abilities, he is arguably one of the most powerful beings in the DCU. DC's New 52 continuity made several changes, though mostly highlighting previous abilities and a physical look not dissimilar from previous incarnations. New 52 continuity did, however, bring Swamp Thing further into the shared universe continuity by placing him permanently in the Justice League Dark Team lineup. Partnering with many familiar faces like John Constantine, Zatanna Zatara, and Deadman. Swamp Thing's powers and abilities make him the true powerhouse of the team. His power limits have yet to be established. He has demonstrated sufficient strength to rip large trees out of the ground with ease and trade blows with the likes of Etrigan the Demon. Swamp Thing can control any form of plant life. He can make it bend to his will or accelerate its growth. This control even extends to alien life, as he once cured Superman of an infection caused by exposure to a Kryptonian plant that was driving Superman mad and causing his body to burn out its own power. After the run of Mark Millar, Swamp Thing had also mastered the elements of fire, earth, water and air. The parliaments of each were later killed by the Word, implying that he has retained these abilities and has the power once held by the parliaments. This has yet to be explained. The new Swamp Thing, a resurrected Alec Holland, has no power over a White Lantern power ring, but he can control all forms of plant life and even grow every kind even if it is unknown to him. He can also grow from any plant life anywhere, dead or alive. This is seen when Cedar creates a portal to the moon and banishes him there. However, Holland simply resurrects himself back on Earth from the plants growing on Cedar's face. Be sure to like and subscribe.